This is a story time again. This is the story of Avatar Aang. So, a long time ago, the four nations lived together in harmony. Then Sozin attacked the air nomads after Avatar Roku died. Like a couple years after Avatar Roku died, he sent his forces out and to the air temples, and they got to Aang's air temple. I believe it was the Southern Air Temple, and decimated all of them. However, Aang left as he was informed that he was the new Avatar and that he would have to fight and protect the air nomads. And he would actually have to go to every nation and learn each element form. As he's an airbender, right? He had to learn, fire, water, and earth as well. He has to learn all four elements. But Aang was like, I don't want to do it. That's too much on my shoulders. I'm 12 years old. And Monkey Otto was like, I understand, Aang, but, I believe in you. I've trained you and I've seen you do this and that, despite what others say, they might have this and that about you, but, I do believe in you because I know who you are as Aang, not as the Avatar, but also as Aang, my friend. And he was like, yeah, but, then he left because he was like overcome by all that stuff. And he was like, I don't want to do it. He took Appa and he left. When he left, he like got caught in a storm, and the storm overcame him, and he like got trapped underwater. He went into a state called the Avatar state, and he saved himself. Um, Basically encasing himself in ice for 100 years. So he encased himself in ice for 100 years. 100 years passed, and a girl named Katara and her brother Sokka found Aang. And they're like, hey, what's this boy doing in this ice? That's a, creature. That's something that we've never seen before. This shit is crazy, Katara. You gotta stay away from that. But then she, like, cracked the ice and other things, and, Aang came out. Aang was, like, so excited to be in the water tribe. He never been there before. He was like, oh my God, all these penguins and other stuff. And then Katara's grandmother showed, and she said, you were the last airbender. You were the Avatar. They wiped out the air nomads 100 years ago, and you're the last one. He said, ain't no way. They're all there. Because he had been frozen in ice for 100 years. He said, nah, they're still alive. But he had other problems too. As the Fire Nation was also looking for Aang too. They didn't know where he was because they knew they didn't kill the Avatar back then. So the descendants of Sozin came through. That was Zuko and Iroh. Zuko was hunting down Avatar Aang. He came to the water tribe and was like, hey, I know you found a boy with airbending tattoos. Where's he at? That's the Avatar. Hand him over. And Sokka was like the only warrior in the water tribe, and he's like, you have to go through our dead bodies. But Aang was like, you know what? I won't fight with these guys. I'll just willingly go with them. As in his mind, and his time, the Fire Nation wasn't like that. It was, but it wasn't like it is now. And he's like, oh, I can handle these guys, and he was. They took him into the ship, and then Iroh was like, so you're the Avatar. I didn't expect him to be such a boy, and so knowledgeable of different things. And he was like, yeah, it comes with being the Avatar, I guess. And he was able to escape though. He escaped, and Zuko was pissed. Zuko was still hunting him, as Zuko had to hunt Avatar Aang down because he needed his honor restored from his father Ozai, who was the Fire Lord. And he couldn't come back to the kingdom until he had captured the Avatar. He had been, scarred by his father and other things too. But so Aang then leaves with Katara and Sokka, and they start the journey to find, so he can become the Avatar and defeat the Fire Lord and bring balance to the world. But Aang wanted to go back to the Air Temple. He goes back to the Southern Air Temple, I believe, is where he's from, and he comes to find all these, statues of previous avatars and other things. He comes to and he um comes to find out that um Gyatso died. His skeleton was standing right in front of him, and he went into the Avatar state and lost his shit. But Katara was like, "No, we're here for you now." And that might have happened to them. You might have been gone, but you know we're here for you now. You don't have to worry. Don't get angry and don't like kill us. Out of a fit of rage. And he was like, he calmed down and he was upset, but he was like, that's the reality of it. I have to live with it. He's the last of his people and he has a job to do. And he left. So then they got on their way and they made it to Kyoshi Island. Kyoshi Island. In the island of Kyoshi, Kyoshi, actually used to be one of the avatars before Roku. See, Roku was the avatar before Aang. He was a firebender, and then the one before him was Kyoshi. Kyoshi warriors were ladies who wore white face paint, because they like to paint their faces. Like I like to like paint faces too, but like they like to paint their face like white and red, and like fight. Yeah, they like to do shit like that. And and Avatar Aang was, playing games with the fish. And they saw him and they're like, okay, this is the Avatar. We need to like welcome him and other things. But like we can't be too welcoming as he could attract attention from the Fire Nation. And she was right. The like village elders were like, right. Um, Aang showcases airbending because it hadn't been seen in 100 years, and people were like, "What the fuck is that?" And he was like, "Yeah, this is airbending. This is how you airbend," and all this other stuff. And Katara was like, "Okay, well, we gotta like make sure that we leave here at some point and all this stuff." As Zuko was on his way and Zuko came there, but then when Zuko came there, Aang had to like channel a little bit of Avatar state and get the fuck away. And he got away on Appa and other things, and he had allies in the Kyoshi warriors and Suki and all her friends. But then they made their way to the forest, and she met or Katara met a guy named Jet. And Aang didn't like Jet because Jet was, a guy that was trying to steal his bitch, basically. Because Katara liked Aang, or Aang liked Katara, and he was like, you can't be messing with Jet because Jet, he plays games. He has a good cause, but the way he does it is wrong. He's too like violent, and he's actually hurting the people he's trying to protect. That's what Aang like took note of. He was like, he wants to destroy the Fire Nation for what they did to his parents, but he's stealing shit from the people he's trying to protect, so he can accomplish those goals. And he's like, you can't do shit like that. And then they left Jet. Then they went towards Amashu. So they went to Amashu, and once they got there, they met a guy who was old, cracked out and old. He was 112 years old. He was like, "Hey, you're the Avatar. You're in my kingdom. I want to test you. I want to see if you're strong or not." And Aang was like, "Okay, we'll fight." And but he was like, the conditions are, your friends will like be here as prisoners and other things if you can't defeat me. And I was like, "What?" And he fought him. And he was like, "I want to see if you can hold down against me, an Earthbender, a proficient Earthbender. I've been an Earthbender my whole life." And Aang was like, "All right." And Aang did what he did, and he showed Boomy, because Boomy is the guy who we're talking about. Um, and he was like, "Yeah, man, I'm Boomy. I'm your old friend from 100 years ago." He's like, "What? You're still alive, huh?" And he's like, "Yeah, man, I'm still alive." And I was just testing you to see if you're like still cool with what you do, and it seems you are. Now it's your job to like bring balance to the world, and I have you have my full support and stuff. Mashu has your back type shit. And he was like, "All right, cool," and he went on to the next spot. Um, Katara eventually found a watermelon scroll, and she was like, "Cool." Um, they met a guy named Haru, and Haru was like earthbending in a place where firebenders were, and they were like, "Oh my gosh, you can't do shit like that." But like they like Aang made it to where it looked like um fucking Sokka could earthbend. And he was like, oh fuck. And then he went into the camp and he found out that the earthbenders were like being kind of like weak. They weren't standing their ground in their own nation because they were like waiting for the right moment for the Avatar to return. And Sokka was like, well, the Avatar's already returned. I know Avatar Aang and other things. And he's like, okay, and then they started to break out and then Aang helped them out, there. And then all the while Zuko's also hunting them with Iroh. And he has a girl find him, a girl who has a little um, a mole badger thingy that can smell. And it could smell like from miles. I mean miles away, y'all. And she found Aang's trail because of Appa's fur. And tracked him, and then they had an exchange with Zuko again, and Avatar Aang held down well, easily against Zuko and all them, and then they left again. So then they got to, a forest again. And they met another old man. His name was John John, a firebender who was outcast of the Fire Nation because he wouldn't heed calls to the Fire Lord. He was like, shoot, leave me alone. I'm trying to just, be out here and do my thing. And he was like, I'm the Avatar. I need a firebending teacher at some point. Um, all these other firebenders are heeding calls to the Fire Lord, and you seem to be the guy that doesn't do that shit. You're kind of a guru at this firebending thing, and I need this. And John was like, okay, well, I can help you out. You know, in order to like, keep fire alive, it's dangerous. He told him it's dangerous applications, but it lights the way. So like you have to have balance within the fire. You can't just have a dim flame because then you can't light the way, or you can't have it too strong, or you could like hurt somebody. So there's a balance, and he was trying to teach Aang that, and Aang was like so excited. He was like, oh wow, I can keep this flame lit. And then he ended up burning Katara, and then he was like, oh, I don't want to learn firebending anymore because I hurt my friend, my girl. And he was like, okay. And then Zhang ended up having to fight against General Zhao, who was also after Aang's dick. And he was like, all right, yeah. He was like, yeah, I'll hold down against Zhao and you guys go. And they left. So then it came time that um, Aang did get caught by Zhao because Zuko and Katara got sick. And that's when that happened. Oh well, first he went to Roku's tomb and shit. He went and found Roku, and he found out that Roku's one of his past lives, and he could summon him at any time if he wanted to. The fire sages were on the side of Ozai, but one of them wasn't. And they let him in to talk to Roku, and he was like, "I have to talk to Roku about my friends, being sick and other things in the Heibai, a spirit that was like fucking around in an area that turned evil that was actually good." And he was like, "Yes, da 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 da. You have to like make that shit better." And he turned that entity back to being good, and then like everything came back, and it was cool. But when he was in the Avatar state, he got kidnapped, I think, if I remember correctly, and then Zhao took him, and then when Zhao took him, um, he locked him up in like cell, and he was like, "I'm taking you back to the Fire Nation and shit. You were Avatar Aang, and we caught you." And he's like, "All right, whatever. I'll get out of here somehow." And Zuko came out in the form of the Blue Spirit, and he cut his chains down like, and he was like, "Come on, let's go." Yeah, and Aang was like, "Who the fuck are you? I don't care. Come with me." And Aang was like, "All right, let's go." So then while escaping, they let the blue spirit escape, or they let him think that, and then like they started shooting out arrows, and then Zuko got hit, and he was like, "Oh fuck, we have to like, he saved me, so I have to save Zuko." And he saved Zuko, and he took him back to some spot, and Zuko was like, "Okay." He woke up and he was like, "Well, I was catching you so I could catch you myself and take you back to the Fire Nation and restore my honor." And he was like, "Oh man, I thought you were gonna be cool." And he was like, "Nah, I'm still trying to hunt you down." So after that happened, Aang was like, "Okay, we'll have to go to the water tribe and learn waterbending. We have this waterbending school, but it's not enough." I can already outbend Qatar a little bit, but like we both needed bending teachers. What Qatar told Aang, and Aang was like, all right. So they went to the Northern Water Tribe. The Northern Water Tribe was the most sophisticated out of all the Southern Water Tribe, Northern Water Tribe, more sophisticated, um, more socialites and other shit. And Master Paku was there. Master Paku was the like best waterbender, and he taught Katara, or he wanted to teach Katara, but they were telling her she needed to learn healing, and then Avatar Aang needs to learn from Paku, and he was learning a little bit from Paku. At the same time, the Fire Nation sent Zhao. Zhao came there, and he said, we'll destroy the Moon Spirit, as he had information from the Wang Xing's library. Um, and he was like, okay, we'll take down the Moon Spirit, and once we do that, the moon will also go red, and then the waterbenders will be rendered weak. At the same time as that was going on, Zuko was also trying to find Aang. So the princess of the Northern Water Tribe, Uwe, was like, hey, you gotta come to the most spiritual spot in this place and go into the spirit world. That's how you like understand shit better and know what the fuck this is about. And he was like, okay, yes, and he went into the spirit world. But when going into the spirit world, Aang got taken by Zuko, and then Zhao took, he killed like the moon spirit, because there was a moon and water spirit, and he killed the moon spirit. So like then the benders were rendered useless. Only the Akota types, the warrior types that used spears and shit, were ever effective against the fire benders during the red moon. And Aang ended up leaving Zuko and getting out of there, and then he went into the Avatar state, and he stopped the Firebenders. He defeated Zhao and all those people, and saved the Water Nation and the Water Tribe. And they were like, "Thanks." And after that, book two started. So when book two started, Aang went to an Earth commander, and he was like, "Okay, we have to get shit together for before the comet arrives. We have to take down the Fire Nation. We'll have to move on them quickly and other things. Do you know how to use Earthbending yet? Are you hip to using your Avatar state?" He was like, "We need that to take down the Fire Nation." And then he tested it. And he was like, now I want to see you use the Avatar state. Avataring was like, I can't use Earthbending that well. And he was like, well, oh well, you have to learn how to do Earthbending like right now. And he like took Katara and he like put her on the ground, like through like some like quicksand maneuver or something. And he went mad. He went, into the Avatar state, and he was like, "Oh shit, this is the Avatar state. This is what we need to take down the Firebenders." And he was like, "Yes, but you like bit off a little more than you can chew. You shouldn't have did that." And Aang calmed down, and then they left. Um, so when they left, um, they come to find out that Azula was actually after them too, which is the Fire Nation's princess, Zuko's sister, and Zuko was still after him too because he wanted to destroy his honor, even though he was a fugitive now, branded a fugitive like his uncle. As they were too slow at getting the Avatar and other things, and she was, viewed to be more of a asset to the Fire Nation and other thing. As far as that goes, and then Aang was like, okay, um, I'll have to look for an earthbending teacher. I'll have to find an earthbending teacher. So he's looking for an earthbending teacher. Um, he they go to Omashu. They go to Omashu. They go through a tunnel and shit. They learn the story of how Omashu got its name and other things. Basically, these two people got together, but then when somebody lost their shit, um, like the guy died, because he was from the other side of the mountain, and then the girl got upset and she, created a whole bunch of strife for people. But then something happened. The people were like, she like came to like remember what she loved about the guy, some shit like that. It was like a love story, and then like they had to like kiss. Katara and Aang had to kiss inside the tunnel, and then that looked away so they could go to Amashu. And but upon getting there, they found out that Amashu had been ran by Fire Nation. They had the Fire Nation ambassador there in place of Boomy and all kinds of stuff. These fire earthbenders had to go underground to like hold down. So when they were there, Aang found the ambassador's son, who was a little baby, and the little baby was like taken by Momo, and he was like, "Oh shit, we have to like get the kid back to his parents." But the earthbenders were like, "No, we have to kill this baby. That guy could come, grow up and become the next like man fire lord or something." And we need to do that. We need to dispose of these people. They took our kingdom away from us and all kind of extra stuff. And he said, yeah, well, this kid might not do that and other things. We just have to do what's right and give it back. And he did. And after that, Azula was trying to find his dick too. And Azula was trying to hunt down Avatar. And she had Ty Lee and Meg with her. And they had to hold down against them. And all this was going on, they had Boomy in chain, and she was and they had came to an agreement like, give me Boomy, and you can see me, and then we can have our little scuffle or whatever. She was like, okay, yeah. And then she like had her like time with Aang, but Aang like ended up eluding her, or like being getting away from that bitch. So then Boomy was in like he was encased in like iron, and he was like, why did you give up your kingdom to the Fire Nation? He was like, well, at the right time, it'll be time for me to like, join the fray and do other things. It's not right now, and you actually need another Earthbender who's more able to like be with you all the way. As like you said, I'm already the king of Omashu. I can't be your Earthbending teacher. You have to find somebody else. And Aang was like, well, who do I have to find? And he was like, I don't know, but you'll find somebody because you're my friend and you're the Avatar, and I trust you. And then Boomy went back to being a prisoner and stuff, and Aang, left Omashu knowing that, other things could change one day. And then after that, they went to a swamp, and in the swamplands, they found um, fucking these swamp people. These swamp people were trying to eat Appa and Momo and also in this forest. It was a big deep forest, this dense forest. So they were like, okay. Um Aang ended up seeing a girl that he never seen before. And he was like, who is this girl? He kept finding her and finding her in the woods. But then she like disappeared. And then like they ended up fighting this like tree monster thing. Katara was able to cut it open and see that it was some like bayou guy who's like a hillbilly guy, and he was like, "Yeah, man, I like water bend the water within the vines and shit to like use my water bending." And she was like, "Oh wow, how creative!" and other things. But Aang was like, "Okay, take me to the center of the tree and show me like how everything's connected." And he was like, "Just hit chocolate pools right here, and you'll find that And he was like, "Yeah, And he come to find out that it is connected and other things. Everything's connected through roots and other stuff." And he was like, "Okay, you came to the spiritual spot, and now you can leave and other things, and hopefully you have the what you need to find an earthbound teacher." So then they do find you know the Beifong's house. The Beifongs are nobility in the Earth Kingdom, in a certain part of the Earth Kingdom. And their daughter, Toph Beifong, is a blind girl. So they were like, oh, and was like, oh, well, that has to be my earthbending teacher. And they were like, no, this girl can't even see, da 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 da. Beifong man was like, my daughter can't see. She's feeble. She can't do this without any help. She has teachers and all kind of stuff, but she can't do stuff like that. Um, However, at night they went into a underground fighting arena, and Toph was there, and she was fighting against all kind of earthbenders. She handled all of them easily. She was able to basically sense these people through her feet, since she couldn't see with her eyes, and then she was using earthbending to like sense their feet. And she was able to defeat all of them and win the belt. And even Aang was like, impressed, and she was like, he was like, I need you to be my earthbending teacher, and she was like, I don't know about that. She went back home and she was playing games. Beifong was like, you can come eat with me, Avatar. I know you're like the guy who's supposed to like save the world and shit like that. My daughter's here and she's like this and that. But he's like, your daughter is like a lot more than what you think she is. And he was like, no, my little girl can't do shit like that. And he was like, no. And then Toph started thinking, if I go with Aang, I can have the freedom I've always wanted. So she wanted to do that. But then, um, the guys were like, no, you can't do that. I'll hire these guys. And these guys were trying to stop him. And she was like, no, I'm going with Aang. And she went with Aang. And she left. Um, and then when she left, Aang was having a hard time learning earth bending. She was like, you have to be strong like a rock, and you have to be able to move that boulder and other things. And he was like, okay, And he was able to like eventually learn how to move the fucking boulder, but it took a while. Um, he had to earthbend, Sokka out of the ground because he got stuck in the ground. And he's like, yo, you got earthbend me out of the ground. And he's like, man, I have to learn, earthbending is hard, and let me try to airbend you out. And he couldn't do it. And I was like, damn, I have to find that shit out. But he was still like the whole time like they were doing stuff. But it came time and Azula was after them too, and they were like, okay, Azula's after us. We have to like watch out. Not just Azula but Zuko too. And they were like, we have to ride for days because like she was riding in Fire Nation train. As like she has the backing from the Fire Nation, she has all the equipment and everything. She was running through the forest like in a vehicle, and they were like, God damn, she's riding our dicks. She's trying to find. We have to like get the fuck out of here and stuff. And they went and they were like, okay, yeah, we'll fly and keep flying. And they all got tired. Even Appa got tired, and he was like, Appa's tired. We can't like ride his dick too much. This is my buddy and stuff. We'll have to walk. And then they were like, oh well, whatever. And Aang was like, okay, well, I can like I can divert their path. You guys go on ahead without me because they're after me. And he's like, all right, yeah. And then they ended up finding out that Aang wasn't there and other stuff. And Zula went after Aang because she was able to find the other trail. Zuko was actually also on Aang's trail, and then they all met up. Azula, Aang, and Zuko, and they had a like three-way fight real quick. But then Iroh found Zuko, and then the gang found Aang, and then they all ganged up on Azula to try to take her down, but she was still alive. And Aang was like, okay, we have to get the fuck out of here. And he got out of there. So then when they did that, they went into the Oasis land. And when they got there, they met a bookworm. And he was like, Wang Chi's library holds all kind of extra stuff, all kind of information. You can find out all kind of things. And he was like, okay, yeah, we can find out about earthbending scrolls or like ways to waterbend and ways to like take down the Fire Nation. And he was like, yes, it's all there in Wang Chi's library. Um, Unfortunately, it was buried in the sand and shit. And Toph was like, well, look at that, thing, that wolf. And he was like, oh, that's a little librarian that works for Wang Chi. And then they went inside and they found Wang Chi. And he was like, you can be in here for a limited amount of time. There's certain places you can't go in this library. This is knowledge. This is my wisdom and other things of all kinds of stuff. This is spirit world knowledge. Humans can't be here. Even the Avatar. You are a boy. You have to like calm down and like not. He calls a certain thing. As you could change shit here in the spirit world if you do shit out here. And he was like, all right, yeah. And so they went and they were like looking through shit. And then Sokka was like, okay, well, I found this room where it has like it could tell you when the solstice was. It was like the day of black sun will be on this day. I was able to figure that out by using this contraption right here. And he was like, okay, now we know when we can attack the firebenders when they're most powerless, as they want to try to use the comet, but the day of black sun comes before that. So we could actually take down the Fire Nation before that happens. We need to get this information to everybody else. And they're like, cool, but then that's when Wang Chi was like, oh, no, 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 no. You weren't supposed to see that and other things. And then he started to like make the building come down. And as he started to make the building come down outside, Toph was the only one that didn't go inside. So Toph was like holding down the building. And then like Aang got all of them out of there, and then Appa got taken away. Aang got pissed, and he like went into the Avatar state, and Katara was like, "No, no, no, calm down." He was like, "My buddy's gone. Hopefully I can find him again. We'll find him once we get to Ba Sing Se." So then they, travel and they travel and travel. And then they get to like this one point where, they have to walk and get to this train. But it's like on this like path that is all fucked up. So Aang is like, okay, we'll protect this wife and husband, because they have a baby and shit. And they're like, okay, that's cool. Da, 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 da. And they protected these people all the way to where the train was, and then it got them all the way to Boston Say. So they got to Boston Say, and then Azula was there. Azula was trying to run a hole through the wall of Boston Say, just like Aro tried to do. But she was like, trying to be more effective and other things, and she was like, okay, yeah, we'll get through here. But then Aang was like, I can protect them, and then I want an audience with the Earth King. I want to find my Sky Bison, and also I need to like get him some information about the Day of Black Sun. And he's like, okay, yeah, we'll do that, and but you have to stop Azula first. And he was able to stop Azula, destroy that drill machine and other things, and do that. Then they got in there. They got onto Ba Sing Se, and when they got into Ba Sing Se, they met, Judy, and Judy was like, everything's fine within the walls of Ba Sing Se. And then they met another Judy who was like, everything's fine in the walls of Ba Sing Se. The dialing agents protect us and other things. She kept saying shit like that. And Long Feng was like, it's fine here. Um, I'm like the Earth King's right hand man. It's fine. I'm Long Feng, and it's cool. There's nothing to see here. The Earth King is like not in good, you know, health right now. You guys probably have to leave after a while, but you're welcome to stay and other things. He had to keep up a image and shit, so he was like, yeah. And so they stayed and they did stuff. Aang was like helping the local like zoo out, and he like made he took the like animals outside of the city to like an other area, so like they had more space to like fuck around as animals, because they were like all caged up in fucked up ways. And then Aang was like, you know what, these animals need more space to do what they do. So he did that, and he was like, cool. Um, and after that, the time came when they were like, we want an audience with the Earth King, but Long Fang's playing game. And Toph was like, well, guess what? There's shit underground. And then they found Jet too. Jet was fighting against Aang, and Aang had to defeat Jet. And he defeated Jet, and Jet died. And then they defeated Longfang too, and they found Appa down there too, because he's hiding Appa. And then the Earth King was like, "How dare you hide, the Avatar's pet and other things? You told me that you were this and that." And Longfang was like, "Oh well." But then Azula shows up, and she shows up in the form of like the Kyoshi warriors, because Appa actually knew what happened, but he can't talk. He's an animal. He's a sky bison. So basically, they fought against Kyoshi warriors, defeated them, and took their makeup and like acted like them. But at this point, Aang was like, I have an audience with a guy named a Guru, and then he went to the Guru's temple to like learn chakra pools. He hit red chakra pool, orange chakra pool, yellow chakra pool, green chakra pool, blue chakra pools, um, indigo chakra pool, and sun chakra pools. I gotta talk about on this channel. And he was hitting chakra pools, and and as he was hitting chakra pools, he said, if you go into the outer, and once you do this, you completely realize yourself. You have to have like no attachments to this earth and anything, and you can't like fuck around with any like friends or any of that stuff. But he was like, my friends need me, and he was like, no, you haven't completed the training. You won't be able to fully master the avatar state. Like next time you go into it, you won't have full control. He was like, I don't care. I can still, handle this shit. My friends need my help. Because he saw some things. He was using Indigo Chocopool, and he saw that his friends needed help, and he was like, oh shit, I have to go find them. And he was like, okay, cool. And he like flew, and he was like, oh cool. Toph also went back to Earth Kingdom after she broke out of some shit. And then they got there, and they started running hands with Azula and Zuko. Zuko was gonna like turn sides to the good, But with persuasion from his younger sister, he was like, you know what? I can finally get my honor back. So I'll like fight for my nation and turn on my uncle too. Um, so then Aang got there and he was like, okay, let me like hit the chakra pools like the guru said, and then I'll go into Avatar state. And then the Earthbenders were like, oh fuck, that's Avatar state. He's gonna like fuck shit up now. And then Azula struck his back, and then he like died. Is what people thought. And then Zuko and Azula went back to the Fire Nation, and they were praised as heroes. And this is when Book 3 started. Aang woke up and he was like, "Oh shit, what happened? I have to, do some stuff. You know, they're like, we took over Fire Nation ship and other things. Um, you were just, not there. You have hair now and other stuff." He was like, "Damn, I've been out for like months. I have to like let the world know I'm still here." And he went to an island and he found out about Avatar Roku and Sozin's, past. He found out that they used to be friends and other things, and that Roku actually did have a chance to, defeat Sozin, but due to their friendship, he was like always like, holding back on him, thinking that his friend would change, but he never changed. And then, things happen and Aang has to be the Avatar now. And he showed Aang all that shit, like all of Roku's past and other stuff. And he was like, okay, now I have to figure out how to like defeat the Fire Nation without, you know, causing any harm for anybody, And that's what his mind was thinking. Aang's was, I have to compromise and try to like make shit right. Truly bring peace to everybody. Peace to everybody. And he's like, all right, yeah. And he was doing that. And so that happened, and um, they went into the Fire Nation, some island somewhere, and he was under a guise. He was like, I'm just this guy named Aang or something like that. And he was like, okay, they were teaching him like propaganda in school, but he was like, back in the day, it was actually like this in the Fire Nation, and the Fire Nation actually knew how to dance and other things. They were like, no, 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 we praise Fire Lord Ozai, and whatever he says is what is right. And they're like, okay, well, that's not what happens. And then he taught these kids how to dance and other things. He showed them how to like dance in the old Fire Nation like type of like traditional dances and stuff. And they were like, what the hell is going on? And they left. They had to like leave that part of the Fire Nation. But then eventually they get to at point where Zuko sent a guy after him called Combustion Man, and Combustion Man was trying to hunt them down. And he's like, we can't like get caught by Combustion Man. This shit's crazy. So they had to run away from him a couple times. But not just that. They come to a point where they found an old woman in the mountains. Now this is some shit that I need people to like heed costs to, because like this is some like real life shit too. And I need oh my god, I might make a short about this boy. Um, they come up on a girl named Hama, and this girl named Hama, not a girl, old woman named Hama, and she was like, hey, come inside and other things, it's fine and other stuff. Um, eat some food and it's fine. It's fun. I live out here by myself, so it's hard and nothing. So companies like cool, and they're like, oh, this is a nice old woman, But then somebody had a suspicion too, Sokka. He was like, no, that don't sound right. When he went into her shit and he found out that she had a comb, and he was like, oh, it's alright. And she was like, I feel bad. I'll stay here and learn waterbending with you. That's what Katara said. So they were like all watching and shit. And Hama was teaching Katara waterbending, but to like a great degree. So much so that she went too deep into the waterbending shit, and she started talking about blood bending and like controlling other people's bodies against their will. And like Aang caught wind of that, and he was like, "Yo, we gotta stop Hama. She's like sending people down to like underground. That's why all these people are missing. That's why they came to that village, and they were concerned about Hama in the first place, because they're like, this is an old woman. She could be like caught by the person who's like trying to keep people down underground. But they come to realize that it was actually Hama that was putting people underground and working them as slaves. You know, because of all the shit she went through with the Fire Nation and shit, and she like never ever got over that. And she was a waterbender inside the Fire Nation, fucking with these guys. And Aang was like, "Oh shit, we have to like get away from her." But she started bloodbending him and Sokka, and she was gonna kill them. But then Katara like bloodbended Hama and was like, now I have this like terrible power because you made me learn it. And Han was like, yeah, it's a curse to you, but it's actually the best type of like waterbending there is. Which ain't wrong, but still, that shit's crazy. Um, and so that happened, and after that happened, um, they go to some village that had like sick people in it. They were all fucked up. They were all sick. And Aang was like, these people are like, hungry and like their fish is like, because like it's polluted by these people over here who are like firebenders who are like polluting these people's water. With all this like debris and dirty ass shit and fucking the water up. So like because it's a fishing town. That's how they get fish and food for the kids. And Katara was like, I have to like get food for them and keep them right. Um, and then eventually after a whole bunch of shit happened with the fire and benders who were like fucking their shit up, they like shut that place down. That was like polluting the water, and then they cleaned up the water too, and then that community was safe, and then they went on their way. So then it came time for Aang to learn you know fire bending, or not even you know. He's like, I have to like just fight him like on the day of Black Sun. And he's like, yes. They were like, yeah, you have to fight the Fire Lord on the day of Black Sun. Don't worry about all that extra stuff. You don't need the firebending to do that. And Aang was worried. He was like, oh shit, if I don't go at him with firebending, oh wait, it won't matter because, the day of Black Sun, no fireworks. But even so, Ozai could like, do this and do that. He started thinking too much and he started to lose sleep. But then they were like, we need to make Aang better. He's losing his mind and other stuff. And he got some sleep eventually, and then he shaved his head finally, and he was like, yeah, we're going into like take back the world and shit from the Fire Nation's control. It's the day of Black Sun. And so on the day of Black Sun, the alliance of Akoda and a whole bunch of Earthbenders and like non-benders alike, came together and they were like, let's go into the Fire Nation and take, like at the heart of it, the capital and everything, and like take down these firebenders. So Aang was trying to find the King's Boat, where Ozai was, but when he got there, he found Azula, and he was like, "Where the fuck's the Fire Lord at?" And he's like, "I don't know." He was like, "I don't know." And then, but Zuko found him, and he had an exchange. But he had an exchange with Azula, and Azula was like, "Oh, well, da 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 da, da, the fire's back on." And she was like, finding Yang and all of them, and then they were like, we have to retreat now because our moment got wasted. They actually knew that we were coming and other things. So that happened, and then Aang took the younger people, and he went to like the Western Air Temple. And when they got there, they found Zuko again. But Zuko had a change of heart, and he was like, "Yo, I want to teach you, firebending." And they were like, "No," and Aang was like considering it though. He was like, maybe he can teach me firebending, but everybody else was like, "No, Aang, how many times he tried to like take your head?" He's like, "Yeah, but this guy might be different. Maybe he can show us that he like means what he means." And he's like, "Yeah, well, I have to tell you the truth. I sent that one guy after you guys." And he was like, "Oh shit, you sent that guy after us?" And he was like, "No, I'll order him to stop." And then they started fighting that guy and other things, and they ended up defeating him. Then they had to leave and other things, and then Aang then went on an adventure with Zuko because Zuko ended up losing his firebending because he went on an adventure with Katara and he got scared of Katara. So then he had to learn how to like use his firebending better. So they went to the Sun Temple, where the Sun people were, the Sun Warriors, and they learned the Sun Dance. And they were like, take this fire all the way up to the mountain, and then meet the original firebenders. And then they were like, there is no more dragons. My uncle like destroyed them. That's what Zuko told him. And Aang was like, okay, we'll have to meet these firebenders then, even if they ain't real. But they were real, and they came out of the tunnels and shit, and they were like, oh shit, we have to dance for these dragons and shit. And after that happened, Zuko got his firebending back, and Aang was able to use firebending as well. And they were like, okay, cool. So after that, Zuko was teaching Aang firebending for a while. Um, but then Zula came to attack that area in the air temple, and then they're like, okay, we have to leave. They went to an island, and they saw a play, and Aang was like getting all frustrated, because he's like, I have to fight him like when the comet comes and other things, and he ended up like leaving and shit. Like he just like left. They're like, "Where's Aang?" He went and he found a lion turtle, and the lion turtle was like, he was on top of an island that left. Basically, he didn't come to find out it was lion turtle until later. But he hit his chakra pools, and he found his past lives. He found Roku, and he asked him like, "What would you do in this situation?" He was like, "Oh, when I was Avatar, I did this." And then he went to Kyoshi, and he was like, "You have to be strong and other things. You have to be strong in what you do. Stand on what you mean and shit. You might not, it might not be pretty or anything, but you have to get the job done somehow, type shit." And then, the other guy talked, and he was like, you gotta like protect what you care about and other things. And then, Yang Chen came, and he was like, you have to like use your airbending right and other things like that. And he had to learn from his like past avatars real quick, how he could like, but they didn't really help him out. He was like, how am I gonna do it? You know, and then he come to find out that their lives were their lives, my life is my life. I'm Aang, I'm not this guy, this guy. Those are just my past lives. They did what they did in their lifetimes. I need to do what I do in my lifetime, so I'll know what to do at the right moment. And the lion turtle was like, he touched him, and he was like, you have the power to do da 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 you know what that, he was like, and he was like, he hit him with that, and he was like, okay. And then Ozai was starting to lay waste to the Earth Nation, and Aang was like right there at the shore, and he hit him with some like water bending, like boom, put his flame out. But like Comet was amplifying shit, so like he was still like cool with like the fire and shit. And they fought, and they had an exchange, and Ozai even like put Aang's back against the wall, and like opened that wound that was in his back. But he went into the Avatar state, and he was like, he was gonna kill Ozai, but then he was like, you know what? I don't want to kill him. And he was like, oh. And Ozai was like, okay, I can take this advantage of this guy now. He's weak. And then he was like, nope. He put him in like the rocks, and he was like, I'll take his bending away instead. And he was like taking away his bending, and he was almost overcome by Ozai's like fucked up aura. But then he like reversed that shit and was like, it's cool now. You can't use firebending anymore, and it's fine. The world's safe now. So after all that happened, Aang was, realized as the Avatar, and Zuko became the Fire Lord, and he said, now there's good relations between all nations, and it's all because of you, Aang, and that was cool. And then they all went to the tea house, and did that thing, and eventually, Aang had children with Katara, and Tenzin and Bumi, and that other girl, and Aang lived a full life, and he died at some point. And that's the story of Avatar Aang, in a nutshell. Stay cool, on the corner, because Aang would have been cool on the corner too.